Hiya, my name is Eve. I work at Arts for Health doing art therapy. Today we're doing our art process using the Sandtray. Our Sandtray today we're going to be making an image, a couple of images, all about what are our personal strengths and our resources and our supports. Okay, so materials that we'll need. The first thing that you do actually need is a sand tray. So this is a mini sand tray, so it can be actually a lot larger than this, but you can always use a mini one with any sand that you have around. Then we need some materials to put in the sand tray, so natural materials is a really good one. And then often when we use the sand tray, we use what are called miniatures or figurines. So those are like little miniature toys in lots of different shapes. These are my animal ones. If you don't have these ones, you can use any other sort of little toys or even just sticks and shells and stones that you've gathered around. But having a sand tray of some kind and some materials and shapes that you can put into the sand tray, those are the two essential items that you're going to need for this process. The only other thing is a pen and paper for your writing reflections. Okay, so the background idea is that we're using our sand tray as a way to help us explore what are our personal supports, what are our resources, what are our strengths that we can draw on in challenging times. So often we can have some idea in our head of what our skill set is and what we're capable of and what are our types of support that we have available, but it can be quite useful to use creativity to think about that in a new way, and we can learn some new things about what ways we receive support and what are our strengths that we might not have known previously without using a creative process to explore that. So our process has two different sides. It's got some writing and it's got sand tray. We're going to do a few different pieces of writing and two different times using the sand tray. So for our writing, that's going to access our thoughts and our cognitive side, and our sand tray is going to access a bit more of our movement and our intuition and our understanding of symbolic shape. So those two are going to work together to hopefully bring out some new information for us, and we also want to have fun and feel relaxed as we go. So the overall idea is that we're identifying our strengths and our supports for us and also exploring those and expanding them in order to find out something new. And sand tray can be a really good way of doing this because of the sand and the natural materials. It gets us out of our head a little bit, but at the same time we've got a few points where we do a little bit of writing, so we can start to bring those ideas that have come more intuitively, we can bring those back to clarity so we can understand them with our head as well as our heart. Okay, so the steps of what we're going to do today. So the first thing is writing for a couple of minutes about strengths, personal supports, resources that you have. So anything that comes to mind with those words, that's like our theme for today, and we're going to write for 2 or 3 minutes about that theme in relation to yourself. So it could be, what are my personal strengths and supports, or who, or what activities make me feel supported and strong and capable. So writing for 2 or 3 minutes about that with your pen and paper. The next step is to set out your sand tray and to use your natural materials and your miniatures to make some image that's related to what you've just written about. So something might have stood out to you in your writing, you could make an image about that. It could be abstract, or it could be something very specific, representing a person or a place or something that you've done, some event or experience that made you feel supported and capable and full of strengths. So our first work that we've made in the sand tray, we're going to step back from that for a minute and we're actually going to make another one. So in order to remember our first image, we're going to take a photo. So if you use your phone, that'll be really helpful. Take a photo of your image in your sand tray. You're also just going to get a pen and paper and write down a couple of words of what stands out about that image, because we're actually going to make another one, so we just want to record that first one in some way. The next step is to notice from your writing and your notes and your photo that you've taken of your first image, notice what's standing out and pick one or two elements that stand out that you'd like to explore further. So we've talked about this in some previous videos. You can pick something that stands out that's very interesting to you, or something that's mysterious, something that you want to explore more, or it could be something very positive and supportive that you want to dig into even further. So pick one or two elements that you'd like to explore further in your next sand tray image. So as we do our second sand tray image, we're just holding in our head those ideas that we took from the first one, and we're actually going to push the elements to the side of the sand tray. So anything that you've got in the sand tray that you don't want to work with right now in your second image, we're going to push those to the side in some way. So you could literally push them, or you could place them in some sort of order just around the edge of the sand tray. The idea here is that we haven't totally removed them, but we've just got them a little bit to the side so we can sort of remember what was going on, but we can focus on the center. So in the center of the sand tray, you're going to make your second sand tray image, building on what you've chosen from your first image. So you make your second sand tray image all about exploring another element of strength or support for yourself. Then our final step is to move away from our image, our second sand tray image, and we're going to write a little bit more about it and allow ourselves a bit of time to reflect on what we've done. So this is the time to write a title, and we're actually also going to pick one element from that second image, and we're going to say, what message would they have for me? So you might be picking like a creature that's popped up into your sand tray, or it could be a rock or a shell, and what would they say to you if they could speak to you? So what would this little dinosaur say to me if it could talk to me? I'm going to try and write that down in my written reflection at the end. So this written reflection is our chance to pull together anything that we've noticed, to make some meaning, to gather things that are helpful for us, and to let go of parts that aren't useful for us. So here we're making a little bit of insight and learning about what we've just done, all about our personal strengths and what is supporting for us in our lives. Okay, so I have finished my sand tray and my writing and my second tray and also my writing about that. So I've done the whole process. My sand tray is here, my reflection writing is here. You probably can't see all of my sand tray, but that's okay, I'll put it up on the screen as well. So something that I noticed quite early on was, because of the first step where we do some writing about what are our ideas about personal support and how we feel strong and what are our strengths, I realized that because that was quite clear and that theme was quite clear in my head, I felt quite focused and safe as I started to explore using the sand tray. So my head and my emotions felt quite clear straight from the beginning. And I think that was also helped by the sand itself. So the sand felt very sort of like a comforting natural material to work with. Also because these natural shells and these miniatures that I have to work with are quite beautiful. So there was something quite clear and safe and gentle and soft about the process. And that felt quite good straight away from the beginning. Another thing that I noticed was that I actually focused on people being supports for me. So that was one of the first things that I started to write about, different people in my life that provide support and the ways and the attitudes that they have that do that for me. So straight away I was learning something as I gave myself time to write and explore that theme. So some of the parts that I had in my first image, I wrote down in my notes. So I had some rocks that were stacked up that were providing me some support. I had some animals around those rocks that were looking away. And that was sort of one way that I explored feeling like I wasn't judged. So feeling the support and the lack of judgment from people, from these animals that weren't staring at me, they were looking away. Another thing that I explored was the quarry characters, so the characters that were digging and working hard and looking for something. So they were all about patience and ongoing work and kind of being capable and strong. I had some treasures that they were looking for, so those treasures and those precious, precious strengths that we have inside ourselves. There was a grasshopper and a monkey that were a bit more about practical and physical ability. So the ability to kind of swing and bounce and have long limbs and reach for things, reach for our goals. So there was some sort of physical representation there, but it was also about being capable and bouncy and sort of moving from thing to thing. There was also a pile of interesting items, just a little pile stacked up that didn't really look like much specifically, but to me that was all about fixing things. So I had a little stack of things that I could make something out of and fix and change and build out of this interesting pile of kind of unique objects. There was also some underground elements, so some treasures that were underground, but also the stingray that was under there that felt like the hidden strengths and capacities that we don't acknowledge in ourselves, but that they're there, and one day we can go, oh, I actually want to realize and bring out this strength, but sometimes we're not ready for it at the moment. And another thing that I really noticed strongly was all these rocks that kind of lay upon each other that were like cause and effect. And I think for me that was all about the idea that when we can feel capable, like we can make something happen, like a domino effect, something can lean on something else and cause something to happen. That to me felt like being capable, and that feels like a resource and a support for me, and I'm sure for lots of people as well. So those are some elements of my first image. In my second image, I chose to focus on the animals, the non-judgmental animals that I had in the middle, and the stacked rocks, and I explored that further. So a warm fire kind of arose, and the animals kind of gathered shoulder to shoulder and had the fire warming them and supporting them from their backs. So their backs were being warmed, and then I just really explored those rocks leaning on each other, and that idea brought out a whole lot more about support and cause and effect, as I said, and sort of making bridges and steps. So I thought that was cool because it's like the idea that it feels good to me, and I'm sure to lots of people, to make something happen, to make choice, make decisions. There are those strengths that we have that make things happen, and that can be in our lives or in the external world. So I explored that and the kind of patience and the tolerance that's involved in that, and those were all my rocks lined up in a row. So some of the messages that came through from the creatures, so something that I wrote down: it's all available, you have all the things you need, you have strength, you need to believe it. So that was very encouraging for me. And my title was just effect and support. So making an effect in my own life and in the rest of the world, and then also feeling the support to do that. So from those animals, that the animals are almost like part of me and myself supporting myself by believing that I have all those capacities. So that was my writing process and my 2 Sandtray images that I did today. So that is our process today. I hope you've enjoyed following along. I hope you get a chance to work with the Sandtray and do some writing about your own personal strengths and what things make you feel supported and strong. Join us for our next video, and thanks for watching.